Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Victory Road's World Cup of VGC. My name is Stefan. With me this time is Hayden. We've been casting together a whole bunch this season. It's been fun. I've been enjoying it.
Yeah, I think this is our third time together. Third time's
Yeah.
the charm. We're gonna keep getting better. Very excited to do this,
Yeah.
especially for these last couple of matches that are coming up. Very exciting.
Yeah, we have some really, really neat ones. And of course, none of these matches would be possible without our wonderful sponsors. So a big shout outs to Elgato, Metafi, and GG Tour for sponsoring the World Cup. And of course, a big shout out to everybody working behind the scenes at Victory Road for helping to put on such an incredible show. But we have another match coming our way. This is going to be a really cool one. It's going to be a match from the Netherlands versus Vietnam. And there are some stakes here for the Netherlands. They do really need to win to lock their spot in the top 16. Vietnam, on the other hand, already out, more playing for the glory and a good opportunity to play against a very solid opponent.
Yeah, I think it's always nice when you're in a situation where you get to sort of set the pace of, I know that you really need the win, Netherlands, and I know that I really want to have a great match against a great player. And it's awesome to be able to sort of show that you can handle a team that is doing really well for your team in the future. So plenty of opportunity for Nghi to get something really good out of this. And definitely Thomas is still going to be hard pressed to get this win that is so important for the Netherlands.
Now, we did briefly mention earlier that the Netherlands and Vietnam were in the same group last year as well. I believe the Netherlands did advance in second place. Vietnam, unfortunately, did not advance last year. But despite both of them being in the same group, neither of these two players were actually on their respective teams last year. So both of them playing this matchup for the first time, as opposed to a lot of the teammates who might be sort of playing a bit of a rematch from last year, which is, a little bit of an interesting side note to the storylines here.
Absolutely. I think being able to say sort of, here's the adjustments in terms of player composition that each team has made. How is that going to change how we match up now rather than how we matched up before? And a nice opportunity for both players to sort of cement themselves as really good picks for those teams in future years.
For sure. And on that note, Tomas Wojcik has not actually played that much this season. So he's new to the team, didn't play last season. He does have a 100% win rate, but he's only been fielded once. So this is going to be a big way for him to really tell the managers, hey, in the event that we win, I deserve a spot in the top 16. Everyone wants to play for their country in the top 16. Like, that's a great opportunity. So he's going to be trying to put his name out there as a prominent pick for that potential match. Whereas Nghi, as you said, didn't play last year, but he's recorded a pretty good result this year, 2-1 so far. Could make it 3-1 here today, and that would essentially be a big shout at the managers that, hey, you better bring me back next year because I did my part. I want to be involved.
Absolutely. Looking at the match scores, jumping in here, it looks like we're pretty close here. If Netherlands can win one more, they cement at least the draw. I believe they might need to win to be able to cement their spot. Vietnam starting from behind, but just two more would guarantee a tie. So this match could have a pretty big effect on sort of tying things back up versus bringing things to Netherlands just needing one more win to get that set win.
I just love that we have Zygarde winning and also Xerneas winning. Like, those are the wins that Vietnam got. Like, they rolled up with the common Lunadon, they rolled up with a common Swordfish, and they rolled up with, okay, the third one is also not that common, but like the two common teams, they lost. But Zygarde, that can get a win, and Xerneas can also get a win. And this is actually something that we played against Vietnam last year in the group stage as well. And when we were preparing for them in week 3, we also noticed that, like, they are a team that can bring out anything. Like, they'll bring out random Pokemon that you didn't think were viable. Look at that team that won 2-0. Solgaleo, Xerneas. Then we have Entei, Rillaboom, Dugtrio, and also a Hydreigon. Like, what is that team?
I think that player might have sent a tweet out about this team, and it seems spectacular. What a team to play with. So very cool for Vietnam to sort of establish, hey, maybe we aren't making it on this particular year, but look, we can do so much with this format. We can bring anything or like a huge range of things and get a win. Any team that we're facing in the future has to respect us, has to prep for so many different things. And it's a nice opportunity for the players to sort of establish, like, wow, I can try these unconventional things out in this really pressure setting from the other side, and I can learn what works and what doesn't, and really show off some brilliant innovations.
Yeah, so overall, a really fascinating match that we've had so far. 3-2 for the Netherlands. I believe A draw might be enough for them, but it of course depends a little bit on what happens in the Mexico-South Korea match, which is currently sitting at 3-3. So really, the Netherlands would like to just record that win, make sure that there's no funny business going on, and allow them to advance. Although, if the Netherlands wins and Mexico beats South Korea, all three of those teams are on 6 points. So I'm not entirely sure how the tiebreakers would shake out there. So this is a wild group. A photo finish to see who advances for sure. And this is going to be a very, very critical game in helping to figure that out.
Yeah, the two players who will be carrying this burden on their shoulder are both a bit newer to the community. So they both played in Victory Road, or this is the first time. They both have strong records thus far, but also sort of just players beginning to establish a name for themselves in this team and as players independently. Thomas has an impressive top 64 at Liverpool Regionals. Nghi doesn't have any results we've recorded so far, but does have that nice 2-1 record at Victory Road, or at this World Cup match this year. So both players sort of just trying to find a way to show that maybe we don't have a lot of accomplishments yet, but we're about to get a whole lot. We are strong players, and we can handle this burden that the two teams are placing on our shoulder of trying to get this win, trying to stop that win.
The teams are going to be a little bit interesting as well. Two of the archetypes that have not been explored too much. For Nghi, we see the Calyrex Ice and the Kyogre team. Now, we've seen this archetype a little bit, especially in league formats. It's one of those teams that you're not really super comfortable bringing to a Swiss tournament because it's not the type of team that's going to go X and 1. But in an individual circumstance like one set, it can be very, very strong. One of the threats with that, though, is the rise of Kartana in the meta. Kartana has become so much more present, and it counters both of those restricteds very, very well. And we do see that on Thomas's side. He has that Kartana, but he's also running a bit of an unconventional pair with Yveltal and Kyogre. So overall, a really, really interesting sort of team. Both restricteds have threats on the other side that they're going to be very scared of. Kartana is going to be probably a big deal for Thomas here, whereas the Regieleki is going to potentially counter both restricteds on Thomas's side. So this is going to be a big positional game. Both players probably looking for the opportunity to just snowball. It's going to be probably a little bit of positioning in the early stages of the game while both players try to get their big hitter in position to just Dynamax and, bowl over the other team like a bunch of bowling pins.
I imagine, especially with Kartana, that's going to be such a crucial question is sort of, how do I position Kartana? How do I make sure it does damage? And if you're Nghi, how do I do damage into this Kartana? It doesn't look like Nghi has very many particularly effective hits. You've got maybe close combat from Urshifu, that's super effective, but hitting into defense. You've got Kyogre still does a lot of damage into anything, so that's maybe something. But you're definitely hard-pressed to figure out how to stop the Kartana positioning game. Although you do, as you mentioned, have that Regieleki to sort of slow down the restricteds. Figuring out how to slow down that Kartana might be a tall order for Nghi.
Yeah, the biggest thing that Nghi is going to need to use Game 1 for is to figure out what item does that Kartana have. There are really two main variants going around right now. You've got the White Herb and you have the Life Orb. But all of a sudden, if there's an Assault Vest on there, this is going to become really, really, really hard for Nghi to deal with. Because, the White Herb variant, especially the Life Orb variant, you might be able to pick that up with a Max Geyser from the Kyogre or a Max Lightning if that's a Life Orb Regieleki. Like, there are not very effective special hits that will just delete that thing from play because it just doesn't have a special defense stat. But if it's an Assault Vest variant, it is going to be really, really hard to get through that Kartana.
It looks like we're seeing Thomas save that Kartana in the back to position later. Don't want to give away that information just yet. And we're seeing a Whimsicott Kyogre facing off against Regieleki and that Calyrex.
I like this a lot. We don't know what the item is on that Kyogre, but a Life Orb Kyogre can very easily take out either of these Pokemon with a Max Geyser. It looks like it's going to be the Mystic Water here, though. So, Water Spout Tailwind, gonna do a lot of damage, but I don't think that'll pick up the Calyrex. So, we could see the Calyrex potentially just click the Trick Room button and then maybe see Nghi try to play from there. But gonna be taking quite a lot of damage here regardless, I think.
Yeah, the Tailwind, Water Spout, just such impressive pressure from Thomas, but you have to worry about that momentum shift. Like, is it okay to set up Tailwind and then have Trick Room go up and have this Calyrex able to just threaten so much damage? This Kyogre is in a great spot for now, and it's going to be able to get this Water Spout off with the Tailwind, but you have to wonder what Nghi has in the back to be able to bring in with this Trick Room if that goes up.
Well, we do have a Protect from the Regieleki coming out, so that's going to survive, and it's also not really going to like the Trick Room being set, but we have Tailwind going up, so, even the Regieleki is going to be underspeeding Thomas's side of the field because of the Tailwind, and Calyrex is going to barely survive. Is that Sash? It's actually sashed Calyrex, so I'm a little bit surprised that took as much damage as it did. But it's not going to click Trick Room. Instead, just Glacial Lance coming out here. Going to be able to pick up a lot of damage on that Kyogre, as well as removing the Whimsicott from play. But still, the speed interactions are going to be really, really difficult for Nghi to deal with here. Now, everything on Thomas' side of the field should be faster than even that Regieleki.
Yeah, that Tailwind is such a huge thing for Tomas to be able to set up. I'm super surprised to see all of these different sets from Nghi. I think it's really interesting. Like, if Tailwind hadn't gone up, because maybe you're worried about Trick Room going up and the Regieleki underspeeding, that would have been a brilliant play. The Glacial Lance would have gotten so much damage off, and Regieleki would still be able to outspeed that Kyogre. But given the situation that we're in, Nghi is definitely going to be hard-pressed to figure out how to get damage into that Kartana. It's already a bad matchup, and now there's so much momentum with the Tailwind and the Kyogre perfectly positioned to Water Spout.
We've also seen from that little peek into the team menu that the Kartana is in fact carrying the Assault Vest. Historically, one of the most common items that Kartana will carry, but the current phase of the meta, it isn't as common as you might expect it to be normally. It's still a pretty common thing to see, but Life Orb and White Herb are the ones that have really picked up. But still, Nghi, if he assumes Assault Vest, like that's great, but I still just don't know how he gets through there. You mentioned earlier that all of the things that can really hit the Kartana well are physical, and Kartana, while it has a very low HP stat, and while it's very well known for its incredibly low special defense stat, it does have 131 base defense, so even things like Urshifu are not going to do that much damage to it.
Absolutely. This Kartana, especially if it's able to set up that Steel Spike, just so much that it can do to survive turns. And it also looks like maybe even a Water Spout, even with this Dynamax coming out from Nghi's side of the field, a Water Spout on its own might almost be able to take out the Regieleki.
Yeah, with the damage on it, I don't think it's going to be enough, but we have the Kartana that's way faster. Kartana could probably just hit it with even a Max Overgrowth, even a Max Steel Spike if it wants to be super greedy, will probably pick it up when combined with the Water Spout. But here comes Max Overgrowth into the Regieleki. That's going to dish out a lot of damage, and yeah, just over 50%, and I think Water Spout from here should be more than enough. Tomas putting himself in an almost insurmountable position if this manages to pick up the Regieleki.
And it does, and so that's a double knockout from Thomas' side of the field. We're going to have to see what Nghi has brought in the back to handle sort of the next turn of Dynamax, the next two turns of Tailwind, but it's definitely a tall order for any Pokemon, especially when you look at the set of Pokemon that Nghi has to choose from to have in the back here.
We also have, of course, the Kartana setting that terrain to heal up the Kyogre and increase its Water Spout power even more. The Urshifu is going to come on out, revealing that it is, in fact, Single Strike. Makes a lot of sense with this kind of a team. And the Kyogre is going to be the last Pokemon here for Nghi. Regardless, I don't really see any way for Nghi to get back out of this. I think, at this point, maybe you try to get an attack into the Kartana from the Kyogre to try to see if it's an Assault Vest, but I don't really see Thomas allowing you to do that.
Yeah, definitely tough even to gain information for Nghi, and you have to wonder, is Nghi going to go with the same thing going forwards and just maybe try to go for Trick Room with that Calyrex if it has it? Or is this just completely back to the drawing board given how things played out here, that there wasn't a whole lot of momentum from Nghi after that single first turn?
Yeah, and that's going to be one of the most one-sided games that we've seen, and unfortunately, really, that's how some of these matchups go, especially with the unconventional teams. Sometimes you just have to go for a read on turn one, and if you get the read wrong, you lose. So, like you said, if Thomas was overly concerned about Trick Room and decided to go for like a Taunt from the Whimsicott or just a Moonblast or something to not set Tailwind, all of a sudden that is an extremely different game, and the team on Nghi's side could probably just kind of roll over him with the Regieleki Dynamax, but Tailwind there and no Trick Room just essentially ended the game as soon as it began.
Absolutely. And so you have to wonder, are both, like, if both players recognize this, are they both going to go for the same play? Are they both going to adjust? Or are they going to try to find a lead where this isn't a factor anymore, where you don't have to go for a read on that first turn? Is there an angle both players have, maybe, where maybe there's a safer way to position that Kartana? Or is there maybe another way that Nghi has to position around?
It's also interesting to note the Focus Sash on the Calyrex. A lot of the time, the Calyrex tends to run Focus Sash. I mean, a lot of the time. Focus Sash is not a common item on Calyrex. It's something that you see every now and then, but like some of the Focus Sash usage is on max speed Calyrex Ice Rider teams, because max speed Calyrex Ice Rider can outspeed most of the format in Tailwind. but there isn't a Tailwind user, I don't think, on Nghi's side of the field. So, that's an interesting consideration as well. I don't really know exactly what speed tier that's running. It's a very weird team to try to analyze, right? It's so different from the stuff that you normally run into on ladder or even in practice sessions that it's one of those ones where you go into team preview from Thomas' side and you're probably looking at it going, what? Like, well, what is this? But it looks like this is going to be a pretty predictable lead here. You got the Porygon and the Indeedee, a very, very safe way to get up Trick Room.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's sort of seeing, well, Calyrex, I was a little bit tempted to attack. Maybe you don't have Trick Room, maybe you do. But I know that here I just have the safest of Trick Rooms. Even if this Whimsicott has Taunt, there's nothing it can do. This Indeedee doesn't even necessarily have to redirect an attack unless it wants to make sure a Max Geyser doesn't go into the Porygon. And it can just even start doing damage. And this Porygon 2 has a super safe Trick Room, making sure that Tailwind is not going to be the way that Thomas wins this game.
Well, we do see Helping Hand on the Whimsicott. It's, again, a move that most people are well aware Whimsicott gets, but Whimsicott has so many moves that it wants to run that Helping Hand is usually one that falls by the wayside. So Helping Hand plus full HP Water Spout with Mystic Water in the rain. I still don't think that picks up Porygon 2, but it's going to be close.
Yeah, we'll have to see. This is going to be a crucial turn to see how much damage that attack does into this Porygon 2. How that Porygon 2 is trained is going to play a huge role in how this works out. I think also interesting to note, Helping Hand, super standard on Whimsicott, but perhaps seeing that the Focus Sash isn't on Whimsicott from last turn makes you think, oh, maybe it's like Switcheroo Eject Button, maybe it doesn't have the moves that I normally expect it to have. And so a bit of a mind game may be played there just by the item choice on the Whimsicott.
What? Hayden, what are we seeing right now? Why is there a big duck on my screen?
I suppose the one way to make sure you survive the Helping Hand Water Spout, and we'll find out in a moment if it was necessary, is to go with the big duck. I'm curious to see what the Indeedee goes for. I'm curious to see what the Porygon... Nghi has surprised me every single first turn, and I'm so curious to see what this Porygon 2 is going to be able to go for here.
I'm also curious how much damage this is going to take. Fair bit of damage coming on, and it would have been enough to one-hit KO. The Porygon is going to survive, though. Going to drop a Hailstorm onto that Whimsicott. Let's see. That should KO. All right, so one KO picked up by Nghi. On the other hand, he was forced to max a duck, and while I do like ducks, this is an interesting situation to be in for sure.
Yeah, I think being able to remove the rain and make sure Porygon 2 survives seems like about the best thing you could have gotten out of that turn. As you pointed out, Helping Hand is definitely something you have to anticipate there, and so being able to threaten that KO on Porygon 2. The best that Nghi could do was max the deck, but then you have to wonder, like, now that this Dynamax has been committed, and we can see Thomas hovering over the Kartana, is there any way that you still have to try to handle this Kartana, especially because we know it has that Assault Vest? So a single max attack from Porygon 2, probably not enough to take that Kartana out.
Yeah, I would be surprised if we even saw 50% come in from that, but I'm not 100% sure if we saw the Porygon 2's ability. It's very possible that it's running Analytics, so that would at least help it do a little bit more damage. That would be kind of neat. No more Helping Hand on the field for the Kyogre, and of course, no more Rain, so another Water Spout is not going to be anywhere near enough to pick up that Porygon 2, and the Kartana move will most likely be redirected by the Indeedee. However, Indeedee's not running Focus Sash because we know that that's on the Calyrex Ice Rider, so the question is also going to be, can the Indeedee even survive a hit from the Max Kartana?
Yeah, definitely the question is, can Indeedee keep that Water Spout being spread, or is it going to be switching to single target and doing a lot for that Porygon 2?
It will survive a Max Airstream, I'll tell you that right now. Aerial Ace does not turn into a particularly strong Max move, and of course no stab on that as well. So, regardless, Duck here has an opportunity. We've seen, of course, Ice Beam already shown, maybe Blizzard, Max Hailstorm. But that thing does also get access to Max Lightning. Could remove the Kyogre here, theoretically. And then if there's a Regieleki in the back with, like, Rising Voltage, it doesn't have to Dynamax as long as there's terrain. It's still doing 140 base damage. So, maybe. I'm seeing a way out of this for Nghi. We'll see what he has in the back. There's a lot of things that kind of have to go right here. But I feel like Max Airstream is kind of one of those. Like, the speed boost is cool, but, the Porygon 2 is not really going to care. I mean, the Indeedee's not going to care either, just taking about 30%. This is a wild game. I honestly don't really know how to commentate this, but the Water Spout doesn't even pick up the Indeedee.
Airstream does get the effect of negating that Max Strike, but the Max Strike almost taking out that Kyogre. We're back to neutral speed, burning one more turn of Dynamax from that Porygon 2, but because that Indeedee did not faint, we're now in a really tough spot for Nghi, I believe. There's just so much momentum still from the Kartana. It's definitely going to be able to get up a Beast Boost because Indeedee does survive that hail, not making me eat my words here. And it's going to be a real challenge for Nghi, knowing that Water Spout just picks up the KO on both, knowing that Kartana can guarantee a Beast Boost into that Indeedee if it just goes for another Airstream, or get damage into whatever switches in. Really hard to see how Nghi is going to be able to find an angle back into this game. As we mentioned...
Dodge the Origin Pulse. That's what it is, basically. 36 HP on the Kyogre with no Rain. I'm not confident that would pick up the Porygon 2 from here. Origin Pulse only 85% accurate. We saw a triple Sleep Powder miss in the last set. One Origin Pulse miss? I believe for Nghi. I want to see Game 3. I want to see what he brings out turn 1, Game 3 at this point. I'm committed.
That would be pretty cool. Nghi definitely bringing a lot that's been surprising us as casters. We're going to see Indeedee Follow Me, make sure that you have that chance to have that Origin Pulse miss. Kartana going to be able to get that Beast Boost we talked about, going to be able to get that speed, but importantly that Kyogre's not at +2 speed, so that Regieleki can still come in at some point and outspeed things. We're going to have to see, is this Origin Pulse going to hit and bring Thomas convincingly into this lead, or is it going to miss and give an angle into a Game 3?
Well, we're going to have to see. Origin Pulse comes in, will connect to the Porygon 2, single target damage, more than enough to take that out. Critical hit, just to make sure. But from here, Nghi down to just 2 Pokemon here. We'll see what's in the back. I'm not really sure how you get through this now, though. The Kartana still applying so much pressure. The Kyogre pretty low, but still more than capable of firing off Origin Pulses to its heart's content. And Kyogre going to come on in, setting the rain once more, just because why not at this point. But Calyrex as well. Both of these Pokemon very, very threatened by the Kartana. The Pokemon that we did expect to be the most pivotal on Thomas's team going into this set.
Absolutely. We said the Kartana was terrifying, and it sure is. It still has this one turn of Dynamax, which is especially crucial because it can guarantee that Calyrex's Focus Sash is broken. It could guarantee a whole lot of damage into that Kyogre because of the boost, even if the Kyogre protects. There's maybe a little bit of a read on if this Kartana can get an attack out of Protect on whatever doesn't Protect. Maybe that's more damage. But we're getting pretty close to Thomas just being able to guarantee wins, or at least wins conditional on Origin Pulse.
Yeah, the Kyogre or the Calyrex will both be... I mean, the Calyrex is the Sash, of course, so it won't be taken down by a Steel Spike, but it would be taken down to Sash at the very least. Thomas here taking his time. I really like that he's taking his time, because when you get into a position like this, it's like, sometimes it's just like, all right, is there any way I can lose this game, right? You just start thinking about, you stop playing to win and you start playing to not lose. And I think that's an important distinction in approach, that you need to sort of flip that switch when you get really far ahead, because at some point, it's really just a matter of, do I not throw this game? So I do like that he's taking his time. I do like that he's considering everything instead of just button mashing and not considering the possibility of, you know, a miss on an Origin Pulse or something like that. So I do like this. Up the Kyogre very, very easily with that max overgrowth, and of course intimidating the Calyrex Ice Rider as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Managing to also guarantee that there's not even an Ice Beam Freeze way of losing this game. This Kyogre is down, and it's just the Calyrex at reduced attack. It's going to have to contend with Fake Out. It's likely not going to be able to get a KO on either of these. With that Intimidate and everything, Glacial Lance does almost nothing. Maybe a crit would have done something. Nope, that was a crit, and it's still not. Clearly Hayden needs to review for damage cuts, but in the meantime, Thomas managing to account for really anything. This Calyrex got everything it could have out of this first turn, short of maybe setting Trick Room if that was an option, but that Kyogre not able to get anything, and not able to get that freeze in Kartana, which was really the only feasible way that Nghi had of making sure that the Kartana couldn't run away with this game. We've now got Fake Out pressure, we've got speed advantage, this game is more or less wrapped up.
Yeah, and I do feel like a lot of this did come down to the matchup. You know, I talked about it a little bit in preview. This archetype of Cali Ice and Kyogre, it just doesn't have a great way into the Kartana. Like, Kartana just walls this to a certain extent. So I really quite like the decision to Dynamax the Porygon 2 there and just kind of see what happens. Because what are you going to do? You can't max either of the restricteds. Regieleki's not going to like maxing into Tailwind either. Like, there's so many different ways that this matchup is just borderline unwinnable. So I like that we saw Nghi go kind of just in the opposite direction of what you might expect and just say, okay, I'm just going to throw something at the wall and see if I can confuse my opponent enough to get a win. But at the end of the day, I don't think we can really judge Nghi too hard for that at all. It was an incredibly difficult matchup. Thomas, though, saw the lines that he needed to see, picked him up, and just kind of walked on down the path to victory. It was a really well played set by Thomas.
Yeah, absolutely great points. I think it's easy to sort of sit in the commentator's seat and say, wow, Thomas just won this almost immediately off of the team that he chose and the choices that he made. But there really is so much complexity in the fact that Pokemon rarely, if ever, has guaranteed win conditions, and Nghi trying to find all of the different lines that maybe haven't been explored for this particular team interaction, trying to find something that maybe stopped things. And Thomas, as you mentioned, taking a whole lot of time on those crucial turns to make sure that you turn a likely win into an absolute guarantee. And so just very impressive play from both players, navigating the reality of this huge matchup.
And that's going to do it for match number 4. But if this is the first broadcast you guys have watched this week, you might not be aware, but we're not doing 4 matches this week. We're doing 5 matches this week, which means that there's still one more match of World Cup action coming our way. And that's going to be a big one. Spain versus Uruguay. It's actually kind of an interesting one because this is one of the matchups that you might have expected to be like a really big deal. But at this point, it's really just fighting for glory. Spain, the defending champions, are out. No shot. They are 5 points behind second place right now. Taiwan has finished closing up the loop to win the group. Poland is already second. But, you know, you don't want to go out on a loss. You don't want to go out as the defending champions without winning a match. So Spain's still fighting for the glory here, trying to take down this match. They are up 2-0. But Uruguay, if you can beat the defending world champions, it doesn't matter if it's not technically for anything. That's still a great thing to be able to say. Like, we won against the 2021 world champions. So there's a lot of glory and honor to play for in this upcoming final match of the day.